This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing today on a Friday? It is March. You made it. It's time for March Madness. All right, February's behind us. It's time for March. We're going to have a lot of fun on a Friday getting you ready for the weekend. It's a huge weekend around the capstone, and you are watching the Joe Gaither Show on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Twitter. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We appreciate everybody who's jumped in and joined us at Joe Gaither 6 and at Bama Central. What are we going to do today? We're going to talk a little bit of football. We're going to talk a little bit of Jalen Milroe. We're going to talk a little bit about NFL Combine. Some of the guys are putting down some time, so we'll touch on that just a little bit. We'll talk about Alabama and Tennessee and the rest of the SEC. We'll compare the top four in the SEC. There's 3 games left, and so we'll look at the schedules of all the top 4 teams to kind of see who's going to end up being. How big is tomorrow night's game going to be in Coleman Coliseum? We'll touch on Nick Dunlap, a little PGA Tour action as our man made a hole in one, and then we will finish it up with a little UFC Ultimate Fighting Edition. Eric Anders, former Alabama linebacker, stepping inside the cage, stepping inside the octagon tomorrow afternoon on ESPN. We'll talk about his fight and where you can watch it right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. We're a proud part of the Bama Central Broadcasting Network. You can find us at BamaCentral.com, at Bama Central on the X Machine, at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated on Facebook, and at Bama Central SI on Instagram. So let's jump right into it and talk about Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, all right, if you're unfamiliar with the timeline, it is March. Spring practice starts on Monday. Oh, my goodness. Spring practice starts on Monday. The media gets to go to 3 practices as of now, and we cannot wait to do that. Thank you so much, Kalen DeBoer, for letting us get a little access to the program this year. It seems like that's going to be a lot of fun for us. But Jalen Milroe drops a video on his social medias, on his Instagram. It's an Instagram story. You can see it on my Twitter account at Joe Gaither 6. And it's one throw where he drops back in the pocket, and his throwing motion and mechanics for the single throw look a lot better. Now, granted, it is just one throw. You don't see the end of the throw. You don't see where the throw ends up and if it's caught, and really that's irrelevant to the discussion. His motion and mechanics did look better on the single throw. He was he was less dartsy, placing it with his hands, and it was more pointing the shoulder, elongating, picking out his target, and following through. So that's exciting to see. You're seeing a lot of overreaction probably on the Twitter machine to, oh my gosh, is Jalen Milroe fixed if his throwing motion is like this? Where is, I mean, now, granted, part of it is true. If his throwing motion is like this, where is the ceiling? But you cannot judge or declare that his throwing motion is fixed right here in March. Come on now. There's no live action here in this clip. There's no defensive lineman in his face in this clip. There's no offensive lineman in his face in this clip. He's not even wearing pads in this clip. But is it a good sign? Of course it's a good sign. You want to see Jalen Milroe continuing to take steps and develop as a passer because you know what he is as an athlete. So you want to see him find that confidence in a more maybe traditional style throwing motion, and you're seeing that in this one singular clip. It's only one throw, and, sometimes, you do things perfectly one time. Can you replicate it? Now, what will it mean? How will you notice this on the field? If you're not really a quarterback expert, and that's A-okay if you're watching the Joe Gaither Show on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and you're not a quarterback expert, how you will notice it, what you saw last season was a lot of overthrows, a lot of throws that were right in the vicinity of his target, right where he wanted to throw it to a guy, but up around their forehead, up over their head. You saw a lot of guys jumping up for passes. This will manifest itself if he's able to fix his mechanics, continue to develop in this area. This will manifest it in more passes on target. Those balls where he's picking out the right guy, but it's a little bit high, is going to be, we're dropping 3 feet and we're getting it right in the pocket where the wide receiver needs to catch it so they can continue their running or continue their route, or they can secure the catch safely without taking a big hit. You saw a lot of Alabama wide receivers last year taking big hits because of Jalen Milroe's tendency to overthrow passes, his kind of dart-like throwing motion, using his hand to deliver the passes instead of kind of pointing and using his shoulder, elbow, using the entirety of his body. Now, look, you already know Jalen Milroe's arm strength is really, really, really good. You saw that last year with his ability to throw it deep down the field. If he masters or improves his throwing mechanics, as you saw on this singular clip, it is one singular clip, but if he masters his throwing mechanics or improves in this area, then the arm strength that you saw last year, oh my gosh, is going to be, it's going to be magnified exponentially because of his ability to use it, to step in and use his hips, not just be placing the football like he's throwing darts, like he's playing beer pong with just in a college dorm room. Like, he's going to be able to really get after it and place the ball down the field, and so it's going to be really, really helpful for Jalen Milroe taking that next step. Now, look, I caution you, don't overreact and say it's fixed. It's one singular clip. Sometimes I can get, you see me playing golf. Sometimes I'm hooking everything. I'm slicing everything. Sometimes that one time in a round, I can have that one singular drive and it works out pretty well. So we want to see it more consistently. Spring practice gets going on Monday, and you're going to be able to cover it all right there at BamaCentral.com. Katie Wyndham, Blake Byler, and myself will be all over spring practice for you at BamaCentral.com. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're getting to know Kalen DeBoer, getting to know Ken Womack, and kind of seeing how this Alabama roster fits into new philosophy. So we're really looking forward to doing that. But exciting signs from Jalen Milroe. And so I think this shows progression, and that's something to be excited for. But obviously you want to wait and see how it manifests itself on the football field with real live action. And we'll see that in the coming week when spring practice gets going next week. You're going to have 1 week of spring practice, then the guys and the university is going to go on spring break, and then they're going to come back for another week of spring practice, and they're going to culminate that with A-Day. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be all over it right here at BamaCentral.com. What we are all over at BamaCentral.com right now is the NFL Combine. And look, 2 days ago, we made fun of it on the program because what's it really worth? You've got the tape to evaluate the prospects. But yesterday, we were joined by Quentin Corpuel and Joey Van Zimmeren of MizzouCentral.com, part of the Walsh Network. We've got MizzouCentral.com, CowbellCorner.com, and BamaCentral.com. They're covering the NFL Combine for all three programs, Missouri, Mississippi State, and Alabama. So they're up there doing a lot of great work, and you can read it at BamaCentral.com. We're going to talk about it from the Alabama angle right here. We made fun of the drills, but we at least want to acknowledge, look, Dallas Turner crushed it. Dallas Turner coming in a little bit shorter than, let me find my tab here for Dallas. Yeah, coming in a little bit shorter than he was billed on RollTide.com, but he went 4.47 in the 40-yard dash, the second fastest time amongst linebackers. His vertical jump was 40.5 inches, the best for an Alabama linebacker since who? Oh, D'Amico Ryans. His broad jump was 10 feet 7 inches, second best amongst linebackers. So he had a really, really good day. 83-inch arms for Dallas Turner. 83-inch arms. And so what this means for Dallas is every box is checked. And you're going to see this manifest itself in the NFL draft when Dallas Turner is a top 10 pick. Now, is he going to be top 5? No, it's going to be quarterback-centric in the top 5. You're going to see the Bears make a play for the quarterback. You're going to see the Patriots, the Commanders. You might see the Giants. You'll probably see, you're going to see a lot of teams working up in the top end of the first round to get these quarterbacks. But Dallas Turner, might be there at 7, 8, 9, 10. I think he's going to be a high-end draft pick, and I think he's really going to be probably a blue chip. He's the best edge rusher in the class, and he proved it yesterday at the Combine that the athleticism that you saw on film, which what's more important? The film, duh. The athleticism that you saw on film is truly there. You saw that with his great performance in the Underwear Olympics. Now, 2 things on the cornerbacks. You saw Kool-Aid McKinstry not participating because of a Jones fracture in his foot. Now, this is one aspect of the Combine. That's a little bit helpful and hurtful. Now, Kool-Aid says it's going to get worked out. He's going to go, and he's going to be available to participate in Pro Day. I don't think he's going to drop Kool-Aid too much, but you've got a little bit of a foot injury for Kool-Aid McKinstry. Did you play through that here at Alabama this past year, and you didn't really even know that you're working with a fracture, or if you didn't think it was worth getting surgery on, and you're working that out with time and rest? Maybe that's the timeline for Kool-Aid McKinstry. And Terry Arnold yesterday blew a lot of people away at the podium, a lot of the media away at the podium. Terry Arnold, you all knew him and saw him here the last 2 years at the University of Alabama, and every time he was up at the podium, he was such an amazing guy, such a great guy to cover. I'm really looking forward to Terry Arnold. He puts down a 4.51 40-yard dash, so good for him. That's a pretty good time for him as well. Not as fast as you might like, but come on, who cares? He covered a lot of high-level receivers here at the University of Alabama, and I think he's going to make a really, really good pro. So let's put the NFL combine away, because that's pretty much all we care about. That is hitting those highlights with a good time. We're going to put away Jalen Milroe and his nice throwing mechanics until Monday, when we see a little bit of spring practice. We cannot wait for spring practice to get going. What's my email from Josh Maxson says? Josh Maxson, is Monday a viewing period? How do we know which one of these is a viewing period based on Alabama spring practice schedule is Monday, March 4th. Below are the spring practice dates and media availability. Spring practice schedule will conclude April 13th with Golden Flake 8A game. All interviews this spring will take place after the conclusion of practice. Limited practice access. A portion, all right, March 6th, March 21st, and April 9th. So March 6th, that's next Wednesday. Ooh, it's going to be a lot of fun to be out there watching spring practice commence. So that's what's going to be next Wednesday, March 6th, and then the 21st, that's going to be Thursday, March 21st, and then a Saturday, April 6th. So that's going to be a lot of fun to be out there for spring practice. That's going to be the media viewing period. All right, so let's talk about, do you want to talk about Nick Dunlap, or do you want to talk about Alabama and Tennessee in basketball? All right, let's do it. Oh, gosh. Huge day tomorrow in Coleman Coliseum. And you can be there if you want to pay a pretty penny on StubHub. I have no idea what the ticket prices are at the moment, but I know that it is a hot ticket, Alabama and Tennessee. College game day in town, and you're going to want to be there. It's going to be on ABC. You can say, like, look, I know it's only going to be an hour, but you can be on ABC, big boy ABC. Your mama has it with the rabbit ears. You don't have to have cable to see it. So it's going to, you want to be there to have a good crowd represent the University of Alabama. We'll be there covering College game day. We'll see if there's a student or participant that makes the $19,000 half court shot. You got a better shot making the $19,000 half-court shot. I think it's State Farm that sponsors it, over the $10,000 Full Moon Shoot for the Moon Challenge. Ever since Full Moon Shoot for the Moon Challenge changed its format, probably midway through the year, it has gotten a lot more difficult, and you haven't had any winners. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be there in the morning to see College game day. But let's talk about the game. That's what you're really all here for, is Alabama and Tennessee, number 4 in the country. First off, let's get into Nate Oates' comments about court storming today. Nate Oates basically lets you know that win or lose tomorrow, Alabama's not storming the court. Not that you had any inkling to do so, but basically says we're used to winning big games here. I love that our crowd gives their all and gives it up for the Crimson Tide, and really helps the team in the game. But once the game's over, acts like they have been there before and doesn't rush the floor. And so I think that's not an issue that you're ever going to have here at Alabama. I talked to a buddy I think the last time Alabama rushed the floor was 2002 against the Florida Gators, a big old win against the Florida Gators. But tomorrow, look, you've got Tennessee, and Tennessee, look, we've talked about Mark Sears being the best player in the SEC and maybe overlooked for, all these honors. He was named to the Oscar Robertson watch list most recently this week, so he did get a little bit of love, and we think he's in contention, in top 3 contention for SEC Player of the Year. But honestly, if I'm a voter after Wednesday, I have no doubt in my mind. I mean, I was leaning this way anyways, but after Wednesday, I have no doubt in my mind that I'm giving SEC Player of the Year to Dalton Kane. It has to be. Dalton Connect has to have it because of 39 points against Auburn. He scored 20. He outscored them 25-21 towards the back half of the second half. Dalton Connect is a real problem, and Dalton Connect probably going to be your number one overall NBA, your number one college player in the NBA draft that's coming up summer. He's going to be a huge issue. In Tennessee, look, you look at the kind of GameCast, ESPN analytics. They have Alabama a 63.5% kind of favorite tomorrow, and that's going to probably be 4 points, 3 points. You're probably going to see that on the line. It's probably going to be 2.5 on the line. It's going to be a hard game. And it really is going to be dependent on, one, who guards Dalton Connect. And I think it's easily Rylan Griffin. And you got to call Rylan Griffin and you say, Rylan, hey, man, you just deny him the basketball as much as possible. You got to let Zakai Ziegler and Aaron Vescovi, and you got to kind of let Jonas Adu kind of carry the load, or kind of make them carry the load for the Tennessee Vols. And you got to say, Rylan, we're going to deny on Dalton Connect tomorrow. And you see how it plays out. Now, Dalton's going to get his. I think he's the best player in the conference. I think he might be the best player in the country. He is absolutely unbelievable. At 6'6", he's got a great jump shot. He's got a great mid-range game. He can take it to the hole. Oh, man, it's going to be a huge challenge as Dalton has gotten very, very hot down the stretch. And I don't really know if outside of Rylan, now Rylan, can you play the entire time, Rylan? Can you stay out of foul trouble? He fouled out on Wednesday against the Ole Miss Rebels. And I guess since we didn't have a show yesterday, we should talk about the Alabama victory. Oh my gosh. Another incidence of number one offense in the country just outscores everyone. Alabama 85 points in the last 25 minutes, beating the Ole Miss Rebels. And trust me, the first 6 minutes, I'm sitting here thinking this is atrocious. The Alabama defense, the first 5-6 minutes of the game was horrendous. A complete carryover from the Kentucky game. And I thought, what the hell? What's going on here? And Nate Oates goes on his pregame radio show before the Ole Miss game and basically says, I think we have a better mindset, and I think we're ready to play. And they come out and they do the exact same hooey that they did the previous Saturday against the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, Kentucky did their end by making baskets. Ole Miss started to miss some baskets midway through the first half, and Alabama started to dig in a little bit defensively and made a run, cut it down to 3, kind of quelled my nerves a little bit. The second half, really the first 5-6 minutes of the second half, you got to commend Alabama's defensive effort. If you can get that over the course of, goodness gracious, you give those first 5 minutes of the second half where you forced 5 turnovers in the first couple of minutes, and it produced easy run out baskets. You closed the lead, and then you took the lead, and you never really gave it back. Essentially, if you can replicate that, you're almost unbeatable with this offense. This offense is nearly the best offense in college basketball over the last 25 years. 128 points per 100 possessions, 1.28. That's insanity as far as efficiency. And granted, they started out the Ole Miss game not really shooting that well from the 3-point line. You had Davin Cosby come in and really save your bacon. Making 6? Is that what it was? I don't have the box score pulled up, but making 5 or 6 down the stretch to really ice the game. And it makes me wonder if Latrell Wright's going to be back available on Saturday. How much do you go back to the Davin Cosby well? Do you say, hey man, you've carved out a role here, and we're going to extend our bench by one man? Davin Cosby, you got to if he's going to shoot as well as he did down the stretch against Ole Miss, I think you got to make a role for him. He's not a horrible defender, and so you want to see him. I think I'd like to see a little bit more of Davin Cosby, and that does bring us to Latrell Wright. So you did want to see him out there on Wednesday. You hope that you thought he might have been available for the game, but no, he didn't make the trip to Oxford. And now you're thinking about, oh, goodness, I hope that he's available tomorrow. Coach saying basically the same thing that he's been saying since Latrell Wright's been out. It's day-to-day. It's a head injury. We can't rush it. I have no control of this. Basically putting the onus on the trainers, as he should, and that's no big deal. But Latrell, you got to get Shelley back. Look, if you get Latrell Wrightsell back tomorrow, it's going to go a long, long way for Alabama basketball winning the game against Tennessee. And you really need to win the game. If you want to win the SEC, if you want to defend your SEC regular season crown, you need to win the game tomorrow. The biggest key to winning the game tomorrow is turning the basketball over, not turning the basketball over. What did you do against Tennessee up in Knoxville? Middle of January? You got your butt beat 91-71, and it was horrific. You were out of the game, in 12 minutes and 13 minutes, you were out of the game, and you never really did dig back into it. What was the difference? You were turning the basketball over. You turned the basketball over 22 times up in Knoxville. Horrific performance taking care of the ball. Now, on Wednesday, over at Ole Miss, what kept you in the game? You were playing bad defense, really, in the first 5-7 minutes of the game, and Ole Miss was stretching their lead and giving everybody the bubble guts and really making everybody nervous. But what kept you in the basketball game beyond, making shots toward the second half and Ole Miss missing and you digging? You didn't really turn the basketball over much at all. Mark Sears went the whole game, 40 minutes, no turnovers. You had 8 turnovers the whole game. Protecting the basketball is the key to not letting these games get out of hand. You turn the basketball over at Kentucky, at least to 29 points off turnovers. What? You turn the basketball over at Auburn. You turn the basketball over at Tennessee. Now, granted, were the defensive performances very good in those games? No, they weren't very good. And so you can blame the defensive side. But the offense that is supposed to be so good, that is so good, the analytically number 2 offense in college basketball's last 25 years, if you are doing the things on the offensive end that's supposed to be so strong to hurt your already bad defense by turning the basketball over, you have no chance, no shot. And we saw that up in Knoxville. We saw that over in Neville Arena. And we saw that last Saturday over in Rupp Arena as well in your 3 conference losses. So what you got? Wednesday, you didn't turn the basketball over. You closed the gap. You started making 3-point shots because basically this team just has too much talent. You keep shooting. They ended with 15 three-pointers towards the end of the game. And they win the game. They hold serve and they set up tomorrow's basketball game. Tomorrow, it's going to be a huge game. Probably the biggest basketball game in the last 20 years in Coleman Coliseum. Do you want to win the SEC regular season? That's the goal. I mean, everybody knows the goal is to win a national title, but really you take it step by step by step. First step, get into the NCAA tournament. Check. You look at Joe Lunardi's bracketology, and Alabama is still number 3 in bracketology. You've seen in his latest update, a little bit of an update in the pod. Alabama not going up against High Point anymore. But who was it? I put out a recent little kind of update on it. Yeah, let's see it right. Right there, boom. Going up against Akron, number 14 seed Akron, not High Point anymore. And Akron, 100 in KenPom, 139 in offense, 74 in defense. Feel pretty good about that. But then the other 3 teams, you got the 11 seeds going head-to-head, New Mexico and Seton Hall. New Mexico, scares me, 34th in KenPom with the 37th best offense and the 34th best defense. Just enough balance to maybe keep up with Alabama and slow them down on the other end. And upset them. But Wisconsin also scares me a good bit. 6 seed Wisconsin awaits the winner of New Mexico and Seton Hall in the newest hypothetical pod. Wisconsin, the number 23 team in KenPom with the 19th best offense and the 54th best defense. Just enough balance to potentially upset Alabama in the second round. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. You're already in the tournament. That's goal number 1. Check. Boom. You're handled there. Goal number 2, win the SEC regular season. That's what you're in the middle of. And Alabama sits there with a huge game tomorrow. Let's look at the last 3 games for Alabama. You've got Tennessee at home. You go to Florida midweek, and then you come back with Arkansas. All right. Challenging schedule. Boom. At Florida is going to be real challenging. We already know tomorrow against Tennessee, they're one of the best teams in the country. That's going to be a real big challenge. You are really sitting there a half game back. Is that what it is? Boom. Let me pull up our standings here. You're tied. Well, you're tied with Tennessee, but they have the edge because they beat you in Knoxville right now. You're going to find out tomorrow is really going to make a half game up or down on Tennessee. Tennessee's last 3 games are really challenging. They're at Alabama tomorrow, which is not going to be easy from a Tennessee standpoint either. Let's not pretend like Alabama's no slouch. Then they go to South Carolina, which have won a lot of have won some upsets already and beat Tennessee in Knoxville. And then they have Kentucky at home, which is going to be a real challenge as well. Kentucky is getting really hot. And then you look at South Carolina and Auburn, they've kind of got an outside shot to win the SEC. South Carolina at 11-4. If they go 3-0 and some things and some crazy things happen, you never know. South Carolina is against Florida, so that's going to be a really challenging game for them. Then they have Tennessee at home, and then they go to Mississippi State. Mississippi State, not an easy place to play this basketball season, 8-7 on the league, but really, really good at home this year. And then Auburn sits on the very outside at 10-5. They're going to have a lot of things break their way. Alabama and Tennessee both to lose twice and maybe to lose 3 times. But if Auburn holds serve and crazy things happen, Auburn has Mississippi State at home. They go to Missouri, and then they got Georgia. So they got a real easy rest of their slate. Auburn probably going to go 13-5, holding up that 4th line in the SEC. So excuse me. It makes Alabama's game against Tennessee really, really important. I think Alabama has maybe the most favorable of these schedules because you get the home game with Tennessee. Let's say you win it by 1 or so. You've got a little cushion going down to Florida, and you're likely going to beat Arkansas. Arkansas has been horrible this year, 14-14 overall, and just 5-10 in the league, losing to Vanderbilt at home this past week. Goodness gracious. So you've got a favorable rest of your schedule. Tomorrow's game against Tennessee is going to be massive, and it all comes down to not turning the basketball over from an Alabama standpoint. You look at Mark Sears. Look, I think that you put him side by side with Dalton Knecht, and to me, as a voter, if I was a voter, I'm not a voter, but if I were a voter, I do love you, Mark Sears, but I'm voting for Dalton Knecht. You've got a huge chance, Mark Sears, tomorrow to say, you know what, middle fingers to everyone. I'm going to show you who I am. Look, the one thing I like about Mark Sears and about his game is that he allows the game to come down. He doesn't really force the game. Dalton Knecht does kind of the same thing, but Tennessee kind of forces him to take over. It kind of funnels a lot of things through him. Mark Sears is more the conduit for everyone else. And so it's a bit different impact on the basketball game. It's going to be an interesting contrast. If Tennessee is forcing it to connect and Rylan Griffin has a decent day, maybe stops him a handful of times, will Mark Sears assert himself a bit more to kind of say, okay, I want to make my name on a big old stage? I think it's going to be a lot of fun in Coleman Coliseum tomorrow. You're going to have College Game Day on ABC tomorrow, I think at 11 a.m. I think it's going to be at 10 a.m. It's going to go 10 to 11, right? 10 to 11 on ABC. And so you're going to want to be in there early. It's a big old whiteout tomorrow. If you're going to the game, you want to wear your white to get into the spirit and really get Coleman Coliseum rocking as Alabama has 2 more Saturday home games, and this is going to close out your season. And then they've got a Florida road trip. You think Alabama's going to win the regular season? What do you think is going to happen in the game? You can always comment on the show at Joe Gaither 6 on all your social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can find us on Instagram or wherever at Joe Gaither 6 and let us know your feelings on the Alabama basketball team as they've got Tennessee tomorrow. What's your biggest concern? Is it Jonas Aidoo going against Grant Nelson? I think that's a huge issue tomorrow because Nelson has proven himself against Tolu Smith to be very physical, and he's really battled against a handful of these bigs. I mean, he battled against Johni Broome. Johni Broome had a huge, huge day really in both matchups against Auburn, but he battled. You got to give him credit. He gave 100%. Grant Nelson fouls out in the game against Ole Miss on Wednesday. What's it going to be tomorrow with Jonas Aidoo down there in the post? Is he going to be able to hold his own? Is he going to be able to slow him down? Because if he is, then it falls on Dalton Knecht. And you see Zakai Ziegler leading the league in assists. Is Aaron Estrada or Mark Sears, do either of them become ball stoppers? Or do you have Latrell Wrightsell back in the action? And boom, you put Latrell Wrightsell on Ziegler. And now you have a little bit of, you're starting to feel like if you can win that Grant Nelson matchup down on the post against Jonas Aidoo on the defensive end, you've got yourself a little defensive game plan. Because really, if you get Nelson, if you get a wash with Rylan, if you don't let Dalton Knecht go off for 39 bleeping points, given what? 20. Let him, give him his average here. He's a respectable player, but don't let him go off for crazy amount of points. You kind of give him a wash right there, but you let Grant Nelson win or kind of neutralize Jonas Aidoo. It becomes a game of role players for Tennessee, and I don't know how the role players are going to stack up against Alabama once you get the Alabama offense going on the other side of the floor in Coleman Coliseum. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about the game tomorrow. I do think Alabama will win, but I think it's going to be very, very close. And I think it kind of depends on the defensive matchup with Grant Nelson and Jonas Aidoo, and then kind of how that plays out with the other forwards, Nick Pringle, if Muhammad Wague gets a little bit of a run, how that plays out if they get Jaron Stevenson on him. Oh, I think that's going to be a problem. I think he'll eat Jaron Stevenson alive. What is Sam Walters going to do in a game? In a game like this, you've seen him against premier opponents already. Sam Walters, I'm sorry, I like you. You've grown a lot already this year, but you kind of pooped the bed each time that you've played against some of these premier opponents. Now, your shooting still is you've still proven to be a capable shooter, but we want to see you play a little bit more maturely tomorrow against the Tennessee Vols. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow, 7 p.m. in Coleman Coliseum. You'll be able to follow the coverage. Myself, Blake Byler, and Katie Wyndham will be on the coverage for BamaCentral.com. You can follow it at BamaCentral.com, at BamaCentral on the X machine, at BamaCentral on at BamaCentral SI on Instagram, and at Alabama Crimson Tide on Facebook. On the Facebook machine. All right, so let's go through the rest of the games on the SEC slate real quick. We'll follow it up with Nick Dunlap. We'll finish with Eric Anders, and we'll get out of here on a Friday. First things first, at 11 a.m., Florida is at South Carolina. I think that's going to be a great game. Honestly. Florida wins. I'm going to go Florida wins on the road. Makes it real tough. Stays hot. Arkansas is at Kentucky. Kentucky's going to wipe the floor with them. LSU is at Vanderbilt. Not going to be a good game as far as talent on the floor, as far as teams, but might be a close game. Might be a close game and good game. From that point, from a competitive point, I think Vanderbilt will win at home. Mississippi State is at Auburn. Auburn will win. A&M is at Georgia. Golly, A&M's falling off a cliff. They're fighting for their tournament lives. We're gonna take the Aggies. We're already taking Alabama at 7, and at 7:30, we're gonna take Ole Miss to beat Missouri and keep them winless in the conference. So there's your 7-game slate in the SEC on Saturday. All right, so let's keep it going on the program. Well, first, let's tell you about Druid City Music Hall. If you are in the area tomorrow, if you're going to Alabama basketball and you want to see some live music after the game, you can check out Wade Bowen. Wade Bowen is playing at Druid City Music Hall, and a good little country artist. You can get tickets at druidcitymusichall.com. But if you're going to basketball, hold on to your tickets or keep it on your phone. Show it at the door. They're going to let you in for free. So it's going to be a lot of fun to check out Wade Bowen at Druid City Music Hall. He's starting at about 9 o'clock, so you'll probably miss the first 10 minutes or so. But once the Alabama basketball hits double zeros, you can go check out Wade Bowen right there at Druid City Music Hall. Get your tickets at druidcitymusichall.com. Let's tell you about Nick Dunlap real quick at the Cognizant Classic in the Palm Beaches. Let's refresh our leaderboard right here to make sure that we are accurate. Nick Dunlap making his first career hole-in-one on hole number 7. Now he is currently, as I'm speaking, tied for 20th at 5 under. He's 1 under for the round. So he was 4 under yesterday. He's 1 under for the round through 13 holes. We just want to shout out Nick Dunlap. He's kind of obviously he won the event. And then he turned pro. And then he hasn't really had a great season since. He won the event, the American Express, and then he was 80th at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and he was cut at the Genesis. That was a couple of weeks ago. Now he is playing in the Cognizant. What was this again? Cognizant Classic. Dismiss you, PGA Tour. Cognizant Classic in the Palm Beaches down at Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, and he is tied for 20th right now at 100. But check it out on the Twitter machine. You can find it at Joe Gaither 6 if you want to see his hole in one. That's good. That's really great for him to make that already a couple of events into his pro career, knocking in a hole in one, represent the University of Alabama very, very well. Let's get out of here with UFC. With a little fighting tomorrow. You like some fighting? You like some blood? Maybe not. But if you do, or you want to support the University of Alabama, remember Eric Anders. We've had him on the program before. We had him on the program just before the MTSU home opener. He was the honorary captain. Eric Anders, former linebacker for the Crimson Tide. He strip-sacked Garrett Gilbert and basically sealed the deal for the Crimson Tide, winning its first national championship under Nick Saban. He's stepping inside the octagon tomorrow. You don't have to do it on pay-per-view. It's free for you. It's at the UFC Fight Night. It's going to be on ESPN right there, middle of the day. Eric Anders is fighting a young man named Jamie Pickett. Jamie Pickett has lost his last 4 fights. Eric Anders has gone up and down. Eric won his last fight, I believe, but Eric is a minus 370 favorite. So you want to see an Alabama guy step into the cage and beat some tail. Jamie Pickett does not have a UFC stoppage. We know that Eric Anders has had several knockouts in his UFC career. Eric has been very vocal about having, 5 fights left? That was 2 fights ago, right? That was 1 fight ago. So he's only going to have a couple of more fights to watch Eric Anders fighting MMA, fighting in the UFC. He is a bad dude, and you should support him tomorrow. Look, it's going to be right on that in-between time, college game day, and you're going to have to leave Colby Coliseum before you get back in there for the nightcap, for the actual game. So you can check him out right there about 1 o'clock or so on ESPN. You know how fights and those cards go. As far as the rest of the day and the rest of the weekend, baseball is at Indiana. They're playing in Texas. It's going to be a really high-profile event out there in Indiana. We're going to have you covered right here at BamaCentral.com because I know it's not going to be televised. You can check them out. Alabama's playing Indiana this weekend, and softball is taking on Arizona this weekend. So it's going to be a fun weekend on the diamond. They're also taking on South Alabama. They've got a full schedule this weekend over in are they playing at Sewell Thomas Stadium? They are. They're playing at home, right? Softball is playing at home. Maybe let me double check before I sign us off here. Don't want to lie to the people. Softball is playing at home, right? They're playing. Yeah. They beat you. They beat you and I yesterday, 1-0. And then they've got Arizona, South Alabama, and Arizona again the rest of the weekend. So that's going to do it for us on the show today. You can follow all those programs and all those sports at BamaCentral.com. Katie Wyndham covering softball and gymnastics. You'll have Matthew Gibson on the gymnastics as well. We'll be all over college game day for the basketball program at BamaCentral.com. You can follow me at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. Tell a friend about the show and buy tickets to Druid City Music Hall. Go see the show tomorrow. Wade Bowen is at Druid City Music Hall on the Strip, and we'll be back to talk about it on Monday. If Alabama won or lost, oh my gosh, let me know what you think about Alabama basketball. Are they going to win tomorrow in Colby Coliseum? What will be the result? Give us a score prediction on any of the platforms that you like to listen to the show, and we will get back to you on Monday right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.